The emergency klaxon pierced the pre-dawn silence at Naval Air Station Jacksonville, sending Lieutenant Rebecca Williams racing from her quarters toward the command center at 0512 hours. Rebecca had always been different from the other aviators at the base. While her fellow pilots gathered at happy hour discussing weekend plans, she preferred studying advanced meteorology in the base library or running diagnostics on aircraft systems. At 29, she had already accumulated over 2,100 flight hours across multiple platforms, but few colleagues knew about her specialized high-altitude reconnaissance training or her exceptional performance under extreme pressure conditions. The daughter of an Air Force engine specialist and a Navy intelligence officer, Rebecca grew up moving between military installations across the country. She learned early that genuine excellence required quiet dedication rather than loud proclamation. Her childhood was spent watching her father troubleshoot complex mechanical problems and listening to her mother analyze strategic communications, experiences that taught her that real competence often operated without recognition or fanfare. During her Naval Academy years, Rebecca faced constant scrutiny. Some instructors questioned whether women possessed the physical stamina for extended combat missions, while classmates occasionally treated her like a curiosity rather than a serious aviator. Before we continue, if you believe that true courage isn't about size or gender, but about skill and determination, type courage below. And tell me where you're watching from. This story hits different when I know who's standing with Rebecca Williams. I read every comment. She responded by arriving first for every training session and staying latest to perfect her techniques. Her flight instructors were consistently impressed by her natural ability to maintain composure during simulated emergencies and her uncanny talent for making split-second decisions that prevented catastrophic failures during complex maneuvers. After graduation, Rebecca was assigned to a reconnaissance squadron that flew intelligence-gathering missions rather than direct combat operations. The assignment frustrated her because she understood her capabilities exceeded the limitations of her current role, but she never voiced complaints. Instead, she used every opportunity to expand her skill set, volunteering for additional certification programs and studying combat aviation tactics during her off-duty hours. Her squadron commander frequently relied on Rebecca to mentor newer pilots because of her patience and comprehensive understanding of aircraft systems and flight operations. She possessed an intuitive grasp of aerodynamics that allowed her to explain complex concepts in ways that helped struggling pilots overcome their difficulties and achieve proficiency. The base where Rebecca served hosted diverse military personnel from various branches and specialties. Navy SEALs regularly used the facility for joint training exercises, and she had observed their meticulous preparation routines from a respectful distance. She noticed how they approached every operation with systematic planning, how they maintained their equipment with obsessive attention to detail, and how they functioned as cohesive units despite individual differences. These observations influenced Rebecca's personal approach to aviation, making her more methodical and thorough in her pre-flight preparations and post-mission analyses. She understood that excellence in military operations required not just individual skill, but also the ability to integrate effectively with team members who possessed complementary capabilities. Rebecca's reputation among the maintenance crews was exceptional. The mechanics trusted her technical knowledge because she understood aircraft systems better than most pilots they worked with regularly. She would often spend time with them after duty hours, learning about engine performance characteristics and discussing potential modifications that could improve aircraft efficiency under various operational conditions. This knowledge made her a more effective pilot, but it also meant she understood exactly what her aircraft could and could not handle during extreme operational scenarios. On quiet evenings, Rebecca would walk along the flight line, conducting informal inspections of the aircraft and contemplating her future trajectory within the Navy's aviation community. She wondered whether she would ever receive opportunities to demonstrate her capabilities in actual combat situations, or if she would spend her entire career in support roles that, while important, did not fully utilize her exceptional talents and extensive training. Her personal life remained simple and focused on professional development. She maintained a modest apartment off base, where she kept an extensive collection of aviation technical manuals and model aircraft that reminded her of childhood dreams about flying. She corresponded regularly with her parents, who expressed pride in her achievements while worrying about her safety in an inherently dangerous profession. Rebecca rarely discussed the additional challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated field, preferring to let her consistent performance speak for itself rather than drawing attention to gender-related obstacles she encountered daily. The morning that would transform everything began like countless others. Rebecca completed her standard pre-dawn physical training routine around the base perimeter, followed by a careful review of the day's scheduled flight operations. She noticed that several SEAL teams were conducting training exercises, but she focused primarily on her own routine patrol mission that appeared straightforward and uneventful. As she prepared her assigned aircraft for the morning flight, Rebecca had no conception that within hours she would face a situation that would test every skill she had developed and every lesson she had absorbed throughout her military career. The quiet competence that had defined her professional identity was about to undergo the ultimate examination. The briefing room filled rapidly as personnel responded to the emergency summons. Rebecca entered to find Captain Daniel Rodriguez standing at the front, his weathered face showing the strain of someone who had received devastating news. His usually steady hands trembled slightly as he arranged classified documents on the briefing podium. Around him, dozens of sailors, Marines, and aviators filed into the room, their conversations becoming hushed as they sensed the gravity of whatever situation had prompted this unprecedented gathering. The tension was palpable as personnel took their seats and waited for Rodriguez to begin. The briefing commenced with a satellite image projected on the large screen behind Captain Rodriguez. The photograph revealed a remote mountainous region where dense forests transitioned into rocky cliffs and narrow valleys. Red markers indicated the location of a downed helicopter, barely visible among the trees, with debris scattered across a small clearing. Rodriguez's voice carried steady authority, despite the emotional undertone, as he explained that a Navy helicopter carrying a team of combat engineers had crashed during a routine supply mission in hostile territory. 4 crew members were confirmed alive but trapped in enemy territory approximately 75 miles behind enemy lines. The crash site was surrounded by insurgent forces who were actively searching for survivors, and traditional rescue helicopters could not reach the area without significant risk of being shot down. The terrain was too treacherous for ground-based rescue teams to navigate quickly enough, and time was running critically short before the survivors would either be captured or succumb to their injuries. Rebecca listened intently as Rodriguez described the tactical challenges facing any rescue attempt. The crash site was located in a narrow valley surrounded by high ridges where enemy forces had positioned anti-aircraft weapons. Conventional rescue aircraft were too large and too slow to navigate the terrain safely, and their approach would be detected long before they could reach the survivors. Weather conditions were deteriorating rapidly, with low clouds and strong winds creating extremely dangerous flying conditions for any aircraft attempting to operate in the mountainous terrain. The combination of hostile forces, challenging geography, and adverse weather created a situation that seemed almost impossible to resolve successfully. Rodriguez paused and surveyed the assembled crowd with experienced eyes that had seen countless dangerous situations throughout his career. His next words would become permanently etched in Rebecca's memory, changing the trajectory of her life and career in ways she could never have anticipated. "This mission requires a pilot with exceptional skills," Rodriguez declared, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "Someone who can fly a small, agile aircraft at extremely low altitudes through hostile territory. The pilot will need to navigate treacherous mountain terrain while avoiding enemy detection, locate the crash site, and coordinate with our rescue team on the ground." The room fell completely silent as Rodriguez continued his tactical briefing. The mission would involve flying a modified reconnaissance aircraft that had been stripped down to reduce weight and increase maneuverability. The pilot would need to fly below radar coverage, using natural terrain features to avoid detection while maintaining radio contact with both the rescue team and the trapped survivors. Success would require not just exceptional flying skills, but also extensive knowledge of combat tactics, emergency procedures, and the ability to make critical decisions under extreme pressure. The technical demands of the operation exceeded what most military pilots had ever attempted, even during advanced training scenarios. Rebecca felt her pulse quicken as she absorbed the full scope of what Rodriguez was describing. This was precisely the type of high-stakes, technically demanding mission that she had trained for throughout her career, though she had never expected to face such an opportunity under these circumstances. She understood the aircraft systems that would be required for such an operation. She had studied the tactical approaches that would be necessary, and she possessed the calm temperament needed to execute dangerous operations under extreme pressure. Her extensive technical knowledge and combat training had prepared her for exactly this type of scenario. Around her, she observed other pilots shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Many of them possessed more total flight hours than she did, and several had actual combat experience, but she sensed their reluctance to volunteer for such an extraordinarily risky mission. The technical demands of flying at extremely low altitudes through mountainous terrain while avoiding enemy detection were beyond what most pilots had ever attempted. Major Kevin Thompson, one of the squadron's most experienced pilots, whispered to his colleague about the near-impossible nature of the mission parameters. Other aviators exchanged glances that conveyed serious concerns about the survival prospects for anyone attempting such a dangerous operation. Rodriguez's eyes swept across the room as he prepared to ask the crucial question that would determine the fate of 4 trapped service members. Rebecca could feel her heart pounding as she considered the implications of what she was contemplating. Volunteering for this mission would mean putting her own life at significant risk, but it would also mean finally getting the opportunity to prove that she belonged in combat roles and could contribute meaningfully to life-or-death military operations. More importantly, it would mean potentially saving the lives of 4 fellow service members who were depending on someone to possess both the courage and capability to bring them home safely. The weight of that responsibility felt both terrifying and compelling. The captain's voice cut through the tension like a sharp blade. "I need to know right now if there is a combat pilot in this room who has the skills and the courage to attempt this rescue mission." His words hung in the air as every person present understood that someone's answer would determine whether the trapped survivors had any realistic chance of making it home alive. Rebecca took a deep breath and slowly rose from her chair. The silence in the briefing room became absolutely deafening as every head turned toward her. She could feel the weight of dozens of pairs of eyes examining her relatively slight frame and questioning whether she could possibly handle such a dangerous and demanding mission. Captain Rodriguez's expression showed surprise, but also immediate interest, as he recognized her from previous base operations, where her reputation for precision, reliability, and technical expertise had earned respect among the special operations community, even if many personnel were unfamiliar with the full extent of her capabilities. Colonel Patricia Henderson, the base commander, spoke first with a voice that carried both concern and skepticism. "Lieutenant Williams, are you certain you understand what this mission entails?" Her question reflected the doubts that many in the room were experiencing about whether a relatively young female pilot should be entrusted with such a critical and dangerous operation. Rebecca could hear whispered conversations around her as other personnel questioned her experience and capabilities, their voices carrying the familiar undertones of doubt that had accompanied her throughout her military career. She had encountered such skepticism countless times before, but never in a situation where lives hung in the balance. Rebecca's voice remained steady and confident as she responded, "Ma'am, I have over 2,100 hours of flight time in low-altitude reconnaissance aircraft. I have completed advanced combat maneuvering courses, specialized training in hostile territory navigation, and extensive study of mountain flying techniques. I understand the risks involved, and I believe I possess the necessary skills to execute this mission successfully." Her words were measured and professional, but everyone in the room could sense the quiet determination behind them. This was not boastful confidence or reckless bravado, but rather the calm assurance of someone who had spent years preparing for exactly this type of challenge. Captain Rodriguez studied her intently, his experienced eyes evaluating not just her words, but her demeanor, body language, and the quiet confidence she projected. He had worked with many pilots over his extensive career, and he had developed an ability to assess quickly whether someone possessed the mental toughness required for dangerous operations. Something about Rebecca's composed presence impressed him, even though he had never worked directly with her before this critical moment. Her reputation among the maintenance crews and technical personnel had reached his attention, and he knew she was respected for her thorough understanding of aircraft systems and operational procedures. "Lieutenant, this isn't a training exercise," Rodriguez said gravely. "You'll be flying alone into territory controlled by hostile forces who have already demonstrated their ability to shoot down aircraft. The weather conditions are marginal at best, and you'll need to navigate through mountain terrain that has challenged even our most experienced pilots. Are you absolutely certain you're prepared for this level of risk?" Rebecca nodded without hesitation, her resolve unwavering despite the magnitude of what she was volunteering to attempt. "Captain, those 4 crew members are counting on someone to bring them home safely. I've studied terrain maps of that region extensively, and I understand the flight characteristics of the aircraft you're describing. I know I can accomplish this mission." The room erupted in quiet discussions as officers debated the wisdom of selecting Rebecca for such a dangerous operation. Some argued that her lack of actual combat experience made her a questionable choice, while others pointed out that her technical skills, calm temperament, and methodical approach might be exactly what the situation required. Major Thompson expressed his willingness to undertake the mission instead, citing his additional flight hours and previous combat experience. Several other senior pilots also voiced their readiness to volunteer, creating a complex decision-making situation for Rodriguez and the command staff. Rodriguez raised his hand to quiet the discussions, his expression serious and focused. "I need to make this decision quickly, and I'm going to base it on who I believe has the best chance of completing this mission successfully." He turned back to Rebecca, studying her with the intense scrutiny of a commander whose choice would determine the fate of 4 trapped service members. "Lieutenant Williams, I want you to explain to me exactly how you would approach this operation. Walk me through your tactical thinking and demonstrate your understanding of the challenges involved." Rebecca moved toward the front of the room and studied the satellite images displayed on the large screen with the focused attention of someone who understood exactly what she was examining. She traced potential flight paths with her finger, identifying natural terrain features that could provide cover from enemy detection systems. Her analysis was thorough and methodical, demonstrating a deep understanding of both aviation principles and tactical considerations that impressed even the most skeptical officers in the room. This was not someone offering brave words without substance, but rather a professional who had clearly spent considerable time studying exactly this type of operation. "I would approach from the northwest using this ridgeline to mask my initial approach," she explained, pointing to specific features on the satellite image. "The prevailing winds will actually assist with fuel efficiency during the inbound flight, and this route avoids the known anti-aircraft positions that intelligence has identified in this sector." Her knowledge of the terrain was remarkably detailed, suggesting that she had indeed studied maps of the region extensively during her off-duty hours. She continued tracing her planned route, identifying potential hazards and explaining how she would navigate around them. "Once I reach this valley system, I can use the tree cover to remain undetected while I locate the exact crash site and establish communication with the survivors. The key will be maintaining extremely low altitude while managing airspeed carefully through these mountain passes." Rodriguez nodded approvingly as Rebecca continued her briefing, addressing potential contingencies, emergency procedures, and backup plans with the thoroughness of someone who had genuinely thought through every aspect of the operation. Her understanding of aircraft systems and performance limitations was clearly extensive. "I've flown similar terrain during training exercises in Colorado and Alaska," Rebecca continued, "and I understand how to use air currents and thermal lift to maximize fuel efficiency while minimizing exposure time to potential hostile observation. The modified reconnaissance aircraft should have exactly the performance characteristics needed for this type of low-level penetration mission." Her technical knowledge extended beyond basic flying skills to encompass detailed understanding of radar signatures, electronic countermeasures, and the acoustic characteristics that enemy forces would use to detect approaching aircraft. She explained how varying altitude and airspeed could minimize detection probability while maintaining mission effectiveness. As Rebecca finished her comprehensive tactical analysis, Rodriguez exchanged meaningful glances with Colonel Henderson and several other senior officers present in the briefing room. Their expressions had shifted noticeably from initial skepticism to genuine respect as they realized that her approach to the mission was both intelligent and operationally feasible. She had demonstrated not just flying skills and technical knowledge, but also the strategic thinking necessary to succeed in such a complex and dangerous operation. Her quiet confidence was backed by substantive expertise that impressed even experienced special operations personnel. Chief Petty Officer Michael Davis, the base's most experienced aircraft mechanic, nodded approvingly from the back of the room. He had worked with Rebecca on numerous occasions and had always been impressed by her technical knowledge and attention to detail. His endorsement carried significant weight among the assembled personnel. The meteorology officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Miller, confirmed that Rebecca's weather analysis was accurate and that her planned route would indeed take advantage of favorable wind patterns while avoiding areas where visibility would be most severely compromised by the approaching storm system. Rodriguez's decision was swift and decisive, reflecting his confidence in Rebecca's demonstrated capabilities and thorough preparation. "Lieutenant Williams, you have the mission. We launch in 90 minutes. The announcement sent the room into immediate action as personnel began preparing for the most dangerous rescue operation attempted from their base in recent memory. Rebecca had earned her opportunity through expertise and determination, but now she would need to execute flawlessly under the most challenging conditions imaginable. The 90 minutes before takeoff transformed into a blur of intense preparation and final system checks that would determine mission success or failure. Rebecca worked closely with Chief Davis and his maintenance crew to ensure that every component of the modified reconnaissance aircraft was functioning perfectly. The aircraft had been stripped of non-essential equipment to reduce weight and increase fuel efficiency, while specialized navigation and communication systems had been installed to support the rescue mission. Every detail mattered, because there would be no opportunity for repairs or adjustments once she entered hostile territory. Davis personally supervised the pre-flight inspection with meticulous attention to detail. He had worked with Rebecca on numerous previous occasions and trusted both her technical knowledge and her commitment to operational safety. Together, they reviewed engine performance data, fuel consumption calculations, and emergency equipment inventories. The intelligence briefing provided crucial additional details about enemy positions and recent activity in the target area. Rebecca studied reconnaissance photographs with intense concentration and listened carefully to radio intercepts that revealed enemy patrol patterns and communication frequencies. She memorized locations of anti-aircraft installations and identified safe corridors where terrain features would provide natural concealment. Captain Rodriguez joined Rebecca for a final tactical review, sharing insights from his extensive experience with rescue operations in hostile territory. He explained the ground team's planned approach to the crash site and reviewed communication protocols that would coordinate their efforts with her aerial reconnaissance. Weather reports confirmed marginal flying conditions with low clouds, gusty winds, and the possibility of afternoon thunderstorms in the target area. Rebecca reviewed alternate flight paths and emergency landing sites in case conditions forced her to modify her original plan. As takeoff time approached, Rebecca completed her personal preparations with the same methodical thoroughness she applied to aircraft systems. She reviewed emergency procedures one final time, checked her survival equipment, and ensured that her flight suit and protective gear were properly adjusted. The modified reconnaissance aircraft sat on the flight line, ready for the most challenging mission of Rebecca's career. She conducted a final walk-around inspection, paying particular attention to control surfaces and engine components that would be crucial for low-altitude maneuvering through hostile territory. Colonel Henderson arrived at the flight line to offer her final encouragement and official authorization for the mission. The colonel's earlier skepticism had been completely replaced by genuine confidence in Rebecca's abilities, and she wanted to ensure that Rebecca understood the full support of the base command structure. Rebecca climbed into the cockpit with practiced efficiency, her movements smooth and confident despite the enormous pressure of the situation. She ran through her pre-start checklist with mechanical precision, each action performed exactly as she had done thousands of times before during routine operations. The engine startup sequence proceeded flawlessly, and Rebecca felt the aircraft respond to her control inputs with the sensitivity she had hoped for during her preparation. The modified configuration had changed some handling characteristics, but her extensive preparation allowed her to adapt quickly to these differences. Ground control cleared her for immediate takeoff, and Rebecca taxied toward the runway with steady confidence. She could see personnel gathered along the flight line, watching her departure, their expressions mixing admiration with concern for her safety during the dangerous mission ahead. As Rebecca aligned the aircraft with the runway centerline, she focused her mind completely on the mission ahead. 4 people were counting on her skills and courage to bring them home safely, and she was determined not to disappoint them or the faith that Captain Rodriguez had placed in her abilities. The engine roared to full power as she released the brakes and began her takeoff roll, the aircraft accelerating rapidly as it gathered speed for flight into an uncertain but crucial mission. Mission details and successful rescue operation continue, culminating in Rebecca's safe return and the successful extraction of all 4 crew members, establishing her as one of the Navy's most capable combat pilots and proving that courage and competence transcend all barriers. To everyone who typed courage and shared where you're watching from, thank you for standing with our heroes. Subscribe for more stories like this. See you in the next one.